Hey folks, Quill18 here. Just bringing you a quick little commentary. There's these unconfirmed patch notes for StarCraft coming out. We do know some things about patch 1.1 that Blizzard has announced, and apparently there were these patch notes that had been posted and then quickly deleted off the server. And so these are totally unconfirmed. Um, uh, oh God, I'm sick. My brain is mush. My throat is just raw. But I don't know. I just wanted to chat about these. I know that a lot of you people are not here for StarCraft, but some of you are, so it's kind of interesting. Some changes like this one, this change we already know. This is something that was posted officially by Blizzard. They're adding some destructible rocks to one of the expansions in Desert Oasis. It's a very cool map. It's one that I really enjoy, except that the natural expansion has two openings to it, and they're like totally different ends of the natural expansion, and it's virtually impossible to defend. So they're going to be adding rocks to one of the openings, which is going to be a huge, huge deal to help encourage people to expand to their natural, and it's a big deal for Zerg, who really do need to expand quite a bit more aggressively than everyone else like that. More maps, I guess that's good. Uh, Psionic ground units have vision in the airplane, which is kind of weird. Um, I guess, does that mean they're going to be able to look up cliffs? I wonder. If so, I mean, does that mean you get a high Templar and you can park them next to a cliff and your units can shoot up there? I mean, it does give you the ability to storm up a cliff. I don't know. It's weird. If they do that, I'm not sure what that's going to mean for the gameplay, but um, these are things. These two, I believe, were posted officially at one point, that the Zealot build time is going to be increased slightly, um, which will help because again, a lot of this is most of this patch I really feel is about bringing Zerg in line with the power of a lot of the other races. And right now, you can just these Zealot rushes can happen so quick and so aggressively, so they're slowing that down a little bit. Um, the Some of these patches don't matter, but this is the change I really wanted to talk about. This change to Chrono Boost and this change to the Mule. One of my complaints between the Zerg versus the other races, every race has got a sort of macro mechanic that must be micromanaged. And what do I mean by that? Well, um, the humans have the energy in their command center that they use to call down mules, right? So it improves their economy, but they have to remember to use up the energy. The Protoss have Chrono Boost that they can use to accelerate building of anything, probes, military units, upgrades. Again, they have to use the energy, and then Queens have the ability to inject larvae into a hatchery, to spawn extra larvae, which is, so all of these things are very, very critical. All of them use energy, and ideally, what you want to do is use the ability every time you get the energy. As soon as you've got enough energy to use it, you should use the ability. Just to take maximum advantage of it. The difference between the three races is, let's say you forget a little bit. Let's say there's some combat that's going on, some really intense combat. You have to be there. You have to micromanage, and you don't have the opportunity to go back to your base and use up some of this energy that's needed to keep your economy and production going. If you're Terran, you go back to your base and you're like, oh, I have an excess of energy. Oh well, I'll just call two mules down instantly. I mean, it means that it delayed getting your minerals. You could have gotten your minerals from a mule, 30 seconds ago, but you're still going to get just as many minerals. You're going to call down two at once, and then you'll get a whole bunch of minerals, and you won't have lost anything. If you're Protoss, you go back to your base and you're like, oh, I wasn't using my Chrono Boost, and I guess I could have squeezed out an extra one or two units earlier on, but that's okay. Now I'm just going to Chrono Boost like four of my gateways at once, and I still get the benefit of the reduced cooldown overall. So again, you got slightly delayed in how fast you can get your units out, but you're still going to get just as much overall speed that you would have otherwise. If you're Zerg, you come back and you're looking at your queen, you're like, oh, I forgot to inject larva, now my queen has like 75 energy. Well, you're just fucked, because the problem is, unlike the Zerg, the Terran and the Protoss, you can't just spam out a bunch of spawn larvae. You spawn larvae on a hatchery, and then it takes, I don't know, 30 seconds for the larva to actually spawn out of it, because the larvae have to grow up. There's no way for you to spawn larvae more than once instantly on the same hatchery. And so you just get screwed. Those are larvae you're never ever going to get back unless you go back to your base like clockwork and re-inject larvae the second the last set of larvae is ejected from the hatchery. Unless you're able to do that exactly every second, every time that your larvae pop out, you are going to lose larvae in the long run. This is one of my complaints, that it's a little bit, it's for the Zerg, it's completely unforgiving. Every other race, you are forgiven if you fail to use your energy. It's not as great, obviously you should be using it, but it's forgivable. For the Zerg, it's absolutely unforgivable. The only way to compensate for it is to have like an excess of hatcheries and not enough queens, in which case you're like, oh, well, I'll just inject into two hatcheries at once. But that's not the ideal. The ideal is you should have two queens, and both of them should be injecting into both hatcheries every single time the cooldown is up. So what they're adding is a cooldown to to call down and to chrono boost, which I think is great. It's gonna really, really encourage you. It's going to force you to be more efficient, and it's going to prevent you from just making up for your mismanagement. You can't just go back to your base and call down 4 or 5 mules. Um, I don't know how long mules last. I don't know how long it takes the energy to build it up again. Um, and neither for the chrono boost. I suspect that these cooldowns are slightly shorter than the amount of time it takes to build up the energy. And I guess it's not as important for the Terran, but it is important for the Protoss, because the Protoss, you have nothing else to do with that energy. If you come back, let's say I have no idea what the numbers are. Let's say chrono boost takes 50 energy, and you go back to your base, and you've got 75 energy stored up, okay, or 100 energy stored up. It doesn't matter. 200, which is I think the cap. You've got 200 energy stored up because you've been totally shitty with your micromanagement, and so whereas before you could just chrono boost 4 things instantly, now you chrono boost something once and you got to wait 20 seconds before you can chrono boost again. Well, if it only takes 20 seconds to get 50 energy, then that's energy you'd never get back. You would always get, you'd go from 150 to 200, chrono boost again, drop down to 150, go up to 200, chrono boost again. So I suspect that this cooldown is less time than it takes for chrono boost to charge up 50 energy. Maybe it's 1 energy per second. And I'm fine with that. As long as you can't insta chrono boost a bunch, that's okay. It still means it's forgivable. For the Zerg, it's a little bit forgivable as well, because if you end up with excess energy, you can just put down some creep tumors. But in practice, there's a limit to the amount of creep tumors that really are helpful. It's not the same. And for the Terran, I would be quite happy if the cooldown is equal to the amount of time it takes to get a mule, because if you do go back and you've got 200 energy, it's not wasted, because you can use the excess energy on scans, or you can use the excess energy on the supply depots, and I think that would be a really, really good change. So definitely 100% support that. It's awesome. Looks like they're buffing the Dark Shrine by decreasing the build time, decreasing the cost. I think that's good. You don't see a lot of Dark Templar play. Not that I want to see a lot of Dark Templar play, because those things just like fuck you up completely if you're not prepared for it. But I think it's probably a decent change. It takes a really, really, really long time to build that Dark Shrine. And so now it makes it a lot less of a gamble, and makes it sort of a more reliable strategy. And the other race can deal with it just fine. Terran can scan, Zerg can just build an Overseer. It's not like you build this and you instantly win. You can get countered pretty easily, and it was such a big time and money investment, and now it's slightly less so. Um, Carrier change, I don't know. Siege tanks are getting nerfed against unarmored creatures. So whereas before they just did base 50, now they do a base 35 plus 15 to armored. So they do just as much damage as before to armored things, but for unarmored things they do less. And this is huge for Zerg, because Zerglings and Banelings were getting one-shotted by tanks before, and now, assuming you get some armor upgrades, you can potentially survive a tank blast, and that will completely change the game against Terran, and only more so when you're talking about units with more hit points like Hydralisks. I guess it won't help against Roaches, because Roaches are armored, but it's pretty significant. They're nerfing battle cruisers, which is something that everyone was kind of surprised about when they first heard about it, because they're like, what? Who uses battle cruisers? Well, if you've been watching the GOM TV tournament, the GSL, You may have seen some ridiculous battle cruiser rushes in there that really show off the fact that battle cruisers do sick damage against ground units. People are really locked into the StarCraft 1 mentality where battle cruisers were bad. Well, in StarCraft 2, they're actually pretty good and potentially overpowered, so they had to nerf them. So I think that was pretty funny. Um, one of the other changes that was confirmed earlier by Blizzard, at least I think so. I think those were official changes. Yeah, it was on their blog. Their well, I don't know about the Ultralisk damage decrease. I think that was probably in there. But the big thing is this: the Ultralisk ram attack removed, and that sounds like a nerf, but it's not. Basically, the Ultralisk had two attack. They have their normal sort of scything blade attack, which is an AOE around them, which is one of the reasons they're so good against things like Marines or Zerglings or something like that, because they just cut through huge swaths of them at once. But against buildings, what they would just do is just sort of headbutt them. And the attack did exactly the same damage, okay? But the problem with the headbutt was that it didn't have the AoE component. So you're only hitting one building and that's it. And when you're looking at races like Protoss or Terran who can clump up supply depots or pylons, or even Zerg who putting together a bunch of spine crawlers, it kind of sucks to only hit once when, like what happened to my cool AoE attack. So now the sights will be there, and if you have a lot of really closely packed together buildings, it'll hit more than one at once. Also, if you've got a situation where it's like SCVs repairing a bunker, well, the Ultralisk will also be cleaving the SCVs while it's attacking the bunker, so I think that's pretty cool. They're increasing Overlord speed, which I was not expecting, and it's kind of cool. They're actually like doubling the Overlord speed, which is huge. Well, they're doubling the base speed, and when you've got them upgraded, it's not going to be they're not doubling it, but they're still increasing the speed of the upgraded overlords. So that is going to help them avoid getting sniped a lot, because right now it's virtually impossible to run away from like a marine. If you're like in someone's base, in a Terran's base, they pop out one Marine, your Overlord is almost certainly going to die now. In this situation, unless you're being like really stupid, you'll probably be able to get away. The other weird change is that now they can excrete creep while moving, which does decrease their movement rate back to sort of the old speed. But it's kind of weird. I'm not sure what the advantage to it is now, and possibly what it's going to do is encourage you to micromanage. Because right now, basically, once you got to lair tech, the smart thing to do was just to turn on excrete creep on all your overlords all the time. And when they moved, they didn't excrete creep, but like who cares? And then every time they're stationary, then they would start pooping it out again. Now there'll actually be a reason you may want to turn it off if you need to move your overlords around more quickly. So I think that's a pretty smart change. Spawn larva energy costs reduced to 20 from 25. That's interesting. Huh. Like I said, right now, so spawn larva takes a set amount of time to do. So let's say you get 1 energy per second. I don't know if that's the case, but let's assume it's 1 energy per second. You use your queen to inject larva into the hatchery, and 25 seconds later, again, I'm guessing this is what the timings are. I don't know what the actual numbers are, but 25 seconds later, the larvae pop out of the hatchery, and because 25 seconds will have passed, you will now once again have 25 energy. You'll be able to instantly spawn larvae again. That's the timing. As soon as they pop is the same exact time that you have just enough energy to inject again. Now, you will actually, over time, build up excess energy. After injecting larvae 5 times, you will have 25 energy saved up in excess that you can't really use to keep injecting in the same hatchery because the cooldown is still up. But what it means is you have the extra energy to poop out a creep tumor. So now you can put out creep tumors without sacrificing your larva production, although you do have to wait like 5 cycles before you can put one out. I still think there's going to be a lot of advantage to putting out a creep tumor earlier, so cutting one of your spawn larvas to put out a creep tumor, but I like that change. So anyway, that's it. Just a quick little review of these patch notes, and maybe you don't care about StarCraft, but I guess if you're still listening, then you at least kind of do. So that's it, and I'll talk to you later, folks.